Yeah, so shoot some questions. Happy to dive into whatever you want to know. There's a question over there.
Test.
Hi, I was wondering for both of you, what is the product or new feature that you're both most excited about that's coming out over the next year?
Okay, maybe you. Yeah. I think you've seen like that flywheel thing that we always show. An important piece, which I think we need to do better at, is like the feedback aspect, basically, and more specifically, understanding why the AI did what it did. So, for example, like it answered something about a return or some policy or whatever, and it can tell you, it's like, well, I used this article. Okay, great, but that article has, I don't know, 10,000 words, which part of the article and why and so forth. What is the data that you use from Shopify? What is the data that you used from the browsing data, the product information? So I think the next stage, and this comes down to having trust in the system. I think the system is a little bit like opaque. So you kind of can, when the AI responds, you get a sense, you can infer why it responded that way, but it's still not very easy to kind of figure it out. So I think as we, like, you can hit like 50% automation and above, like I would say not with a lot of effort, well, with some effort, but I think every incremental percentage point after that is harder and harder because the use cases are more complex. And so having the ability to debug the AI from all of you, I think is going to be super, super valuable, important, and more importantly, to create trust in the system, because what's going to happen, these systems, like, you got to understand, like, they are generative, meaning that they are generating stuff based on like the context that they have. There is no way to prevent 100% like hallucination free. And I think, you know, humans hallucinate as well, so it's like having the expectation that somehow like these systems will be performed better, I think it's not realistic. And so having the ability to understand why it did that, I think it's like really key to adopt it en masse. So more opening the hood and looking what's under the hood, I think that's like really important. And I'm really excited, and we're actually working on it right now. So, and hopefully we're going to release it. A lot of these improvements soon.
Cool. Yeah, on my end, remember this? I had this slide this morning with like discovery, conversion, and then re-engagement. So I think the discovery is not really something that we're going to get into. The conversion is like the big focus right now. So we have the chat on the website that's here to like respond to your questions, whether they are pre-sale, post-sale. That's the focus right now. But I think there's a whole new world that is in the re-engagement that is absolutely exciting. So like there's things like abandoned cart. Like right now, the abandoned cart messages are like very, yeah, essentially it's a campaign that's like very repetitive. Whereas like we see some merchants, like I think Talent Pop does that as well, where they pick up the phone, call the customer, and have like a one-to-one interaction that works really well. So I think that's one use case that's exciting. Another one is social. I think we've never figured out like social truly. Like we have we integrate with like Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp, and so on. And then we get like all these comments that come in, and maybe like you guys have had this experience. You like plug this into Gorgias, and like some of them are like legit support questions, and some of them are like cat emoji, for instance. So like, what do you do from this? And I think there's a pretty big opportunity to like close the loop, because sometimes people are like, oh, I love this, or like they just express interest in a product, but that's not like strong interest. It's just like you know that they are interested in this. And so the moment they come to your website and then you have a conversation and then you want to follow up with them, you know like how they commented on social, and then you can re-engage using that data. And so I think that's why what I shared this morning in the presentation is that I'm really excited about us as a group working using AI to convert more of what the visitors on the website. And then I think once we do that well, then there's going to be this whole other world that opens up, which is like re-engaging people. And right now, like let's say your store is making like $10 million a year, like there's roughly like 3 million that is coming from like email marketing, and maybe like 1.5 million that's coming from SMS marketing. And that's, I think, like you guys in this room can be driving like $4 or $5 million of revenue for the brand in a year's time. So I'm super excited about this. I hope it's gonna happen as fast as we can. And I just want to ask, when you ask questions, can you just tell us like what brand you're with? It's always cool to know like who's here.
In the last session with the new Era CEO, he mentioned that he builds his company, the sauce to his success is starting with customer personas and then building marketing, products, marketing, everything around those personas. So I'm just curious, does Gorgias enable us to do that? Can we identify within all of our different support channels what persona the customer belongs to, kind of help us to personalize our customer experience actions to those personas?
Cool. I can take this. So I think the best way to do that, we're not going to do it automatically, but we have customer fields. And so you can say, for instance, that's like a first-time buyer, a VIP, and you can set these customer fields like using third-party tools. You can set them in Shopify. And so this way, like you could use your customer fields to be like you have 5 personas, and then like all your customers are tagged based on that. And there's a system that dynamically updates what persona you're in based on what we know about the customer. And then you can have like a different journey based on like what persona that is. So I think that's one approach, but that's not something we would do natively. That means like you need to have some system that tags the customer per persona. That being said, like you can easily do it with VIPs, for example. You can say anyone that spends like north of $1,000, like is tagged as a VIP, and therefore I'm going to treat them a certain way. So I think that's one part. The other part is not directly personas, but one of the things that's cool about some of our merchants is that they take all of these tickets and then they try to figure out, okay, like what are customers talking about? And one of the things we are shipping at the end of the quarter, so in 2 months, it's going to be voice of the customer. So we can extract insights from these conversations, and you can see like, okay, there's like a certain type of feedback about like product A, like for example, like there's like a damage rate that's higher than usual, or like I have like shipping issues with this other product. So I think we're going to give you insights about the customers through this voice of the customer reporting. Down the line, I think what would be really exciting is to automatically populate these fields, these customer fields, to be like, okay, that's the persona, and so this way you can use them. So like, great idea. Let's see how you guys are using it, and if that's something that picks up, like we can definitely build it.
Yeah, I think I have maybe. So I know support quite well. I know e-commerce a little bit, of course, but I don't really. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in the marketing space. But one thing that's like not. Maybe one bet that we're making in Gorgias is that like, because this new technology exists, like we can kind of treat everyone as a special snowflake. There is not really. And what I mean by this is like we could literally like, because like typically in marketing you think about segments and you think about like all sorts of kind of putting people in categories and then having some sort of automation or whatever on top of it. Like I feel like that's probably going to change. And I don't mean that necessarily that you know, we're not going to use the data to make decisions, stuff like that, but like not necessarily thinking in terms of kind of how to put people in different categories or audiences and stuff like that, but more how, given what I know about a person, like the context, like what pages did they visit, like how many tickets did they have, like and so forth, like that type of information just on the spot, like generate something based on the criteria that is set at the company level. So it's a little bit of a different way of looking at it. I mean, it's a bet that we're making with the AI journeys, but we feel like that's maybe there's an opportunity here to think a little bit differently how we're looking at like from a marketing perspective, because there's a lot of stuff that's like kind of happened before LLMs even were a thing, right? So maybe we should rethink that. Yeah.
Okay, we have a question over here.
Hey, I'm Eli from Brockshot. But that triggers, I've been in my head trying to figure out like where do forms fit in with all of this? Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, is there any roadmap to getting the agent conversation started in the opt-in experience? Mm-hmm. Or, you know, when you're collecting that first-party data, you would, on your opt-in form traditionally, maybe grab some information with like a couple of options in a survey. But where do you think this is going instead of doing something like that? Is there a conversation starter with questions on the pop-up when someone's first arriving to your website that you're getting information to use later? Or is there anything around that yet?
Yeah, great question. I think that's really, I don't think forms have like a really exciting future. I think it's just more natural to have a conversation. So that's something that you can do with the agent. I think what you would do is like create a guidance that says, okay, like customer wants, let's say $10 off by becoming an email subscriber. And in order to do that, you need to collect a bunch of information, like let's say their birthday, like where they live, and like some other data points. And then after the whole thing is done, then you can trigger an action that will be like generating this like one-off custom code. So yeah, if that's something you want to do, I think that's a really exciting use case. Like feel free to email me, like Romain at Gorgias, and like we can try it out. I think that'd be like a pretty cool use case and something that we should do on all channels, like on the chat, on like social. That's a great idea.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I work for a small niche menswear company called Hikers Co. We make casual hidden suspenders. And we've been working with Gorgias since like 21. It totally saved me because I was handling all the customer service myself, and surprisingly, we sell a lot of these things. So my question is, how much of this AI-generated information that the AI chat is collecting about our customers can be synced back out to our other channels? So, for instance, Klaviyo or Shopify, how much cross data sharing are we going to have?
Mm-hmm. So you mean like the information that's collected through Gorgias chats and tickets, like sent to Klaviyo and other destinations?
Something to like segment,
mm-hmm.
like you're saying. I mean, you're saying that this is something that's going to be going away, and yet.
Yeah,
right
but that's
now,
not the case. That's the bet. That's the bet. Yeah. So I don't think we're sending a lot today. I think there's. I'm actually not sure. Like I don't know.
So one thing we're doing is doing ticket recaps. So when you open a ticket, there's going to be like an LLM-generated summary of that ticket, and we're doing this at the scope of the ticket and at the scope of the customer. So that means that it's available through our API, and like all the other tools can use it. So like if you want unstructured data, like this is going to be available through Klaviyo and other things. If you want structured data, which is different from the bet, so like you have like custom fields, then like today we don't do that, but I think like that'd be good for us to like automatically populate those custom fields back to the persona question to be like what's the like some people sell like items for dogs, for instance, and like having the birthday of the dog is like super valuable, for instance. So we can like populate that automatically with an LLM to say, it appeared in the ticket, we populate it in the customer field. We sync these fields with like your SMS marketing app, and then you can use that to like trigger a flow on that date. So use case makes a lot of sense. You can do that manually with the fields. I think what's missing on our part is to like mine the ticket and populate it. So it's the second time this is mentioned just now. So it sounds like that's something that we should look into.
Yeah.
Hi, Chris from Castor Sportswear, a premium sportswear brand based in the UK. We operate 39 Shopify sites and probably twice as many retail stores. Just curious, where do you think Gorgias can play a role within retail or POS? Do you think it has a place in that setting?
I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think at the end of the day, like what we want is the experience that Jonathan was talking about. So like you show up in the store, or you show up online, or you have a conversation with the brand, and the same context is available. And so I think what would be valuable is like when you show up in the store, like there's a little like CRM recap of like, hey, this is what we know about Alex. He wears black. He has a cap. Like all that stuff should be available, and so that you can personalize the experience. So I think that's one dimension. Another one that we've seen, one of our customers in San Francisco is Decathlon, and what they have is they have like they're like a sportswear brand, and they sell like for each sport that you can think of, like they have a salesperson in the store that knows everything about that specific sport, and so they are product experts, and so they can be product experts with like people working into the stores, or they can be product expert online when like no one's in their like area, for instance. And so I think the experience can be like having them be on their phone and like talking to customers like when they just have time for it. So I think it goes both ways. Like the retail store helping out online customers, and then like what we know about the online customers being brought to the retail store. So there's a Gorgias mobile app that's getting better by the day from Alex's team's work. So that's something they can definitely use, is to have like the record of like all the tickets that this customer has been submitting.
Yeah, I think like the store clerks, when like I go to the checkout, for example, they don't know who I am before. Like they should know who I am, and they should know that I created tickets, and somehow. So I think it's like probably like the data that we have on our side probably needs to be synced with that like a little bit more. It's like, oh, you're Alex. Like I saw that you had an issue with some things. Like, did you figure it out? Yeah, I did. Okay, cool. That's a good experience, right? And you can see. I think that's probably like kind of a low-hanging fruit that we could do. But then there's, I guess, like, and then have that data in the Shopify POS, since that's the main kind of integration that we have. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Perfect. We have another one over here.
Hi, my name is Brendan with Pasquini Coffee Company. The question we had was more for like the core functionality of Gorgias. Like the AI stuff really for our business isn't super applicable, but we need it for tickets. One issue we have is like it's really hard to get a ticket out of Gorgias to another employee that can provide feedback and like forward it outside into like Gmail and then forward it back. And then also like the search functionality is not great. So like, will the core feature still be improved? And also, is there a way to like, so one of the issues we have is like we sell and service espresso equipment. So people will submit a ticket where they need technical support. And the technicians don't have Gorgias account. We don't need them to have a Gorgias account. But we need to get the info out of Gorgias to the technician. The technician needs to provide back and forth with the customer service rep. And the customer service rep then sends that back to the customer. So like, is there a way to have that kind of integration outside of Gorgias?
You mean with Gmail, right?
Yeah. Or any email client, really.
Uh-huh. I mean, you can forward. I guess like the forwarding doesn't work for you really well? Or?
Not particularly.
I think one way to do this is so our pricing is based on tickets. So you can have as many users as you want. So you can create a user for that person. They don't need to log in.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to create a user.
You can create it for them. They don't have to log in. And then you tag them on an internal note. And what's going to happen when you tag them is that they're going to get an email. And then they can respond to that email. And that's going to add a note to that ticket. So like they're giving context to the agent. And then the agent has access to this. And then they can respond to the customer. So would that do the trick? Or do you need more?
Because in Gorgias, you don't pay for seats.
Okay, so we can have like...
So you can have as many seats you want.
Okay, so you can have like an unlimited amount of basically
users.
people, and then they can just reply from their Gmail.
Yes.
They can take the photos, and the customer doesn't really have to see all the back and forth.
Exactly. It's going to be internal notes, like the yellow thing in tickets. Okay. And then like the agent will be the one responding to the customer.
Okay.
And search, it needs to get better. Like it's on the roadmap, I agree.
Is that a commitment, Alex?
You can record and play that back next year. Hey, did the search get better or no? It's like,
Hi, my name is Enrique. I work with Roar. We sell electric dirt bikes. I'm their lead tech and / customer service over there. We get a lot of tickets coming in daily. It's kind of hard to distinguish whether it's a simple question of, hey, where's my order, or is this in stock? And then my bike doesn't work, I need help. So does Gorgias help out with separating those tickets, knowing whether it's a technician issue or this is going to be a more simpler way to see it, more simpler
like
questions.
the complexity, you mean?
Exactly.
I mean, have you been to Thomas's session before? He presented, like, our head of product presented like kind of a roadmap a little bit, like what we're going to do this year. And one of the items was like we're doing ticket prioritization and skills-based routing. So for like there's a couple of, not specifically answering to your question, but like we're adding a lot more functionality in terms of like how granular can you get with like the placing tickets in different buckets, and then you have maybe different teams dealing with different types of issues. So you have level 1 support, and then there's level 2, which is like dealing with more. So that is on the roadmap and coming. So then one thing that it's like we're always talking is like, hey, we can use generative AI to answer your tickets, but like one of the applications of AI is like setting up those, like determining the priority automatically based on the profile of the agent. So instead of you doing like a very complex system where it's like, if it has this keyword, then it goes in this bucket, and if it has this other keyword, it goes in something else. So we want to simplify that like significantly compared to other vendors. And that's definitely has been, I guess, like a weak spot in Gorgias for a while. So we're addressing that this year. The other thing that we are also doing, Roman mentioned, was the voice of customer functionality. So what we're going to do is like automatically classify the different types of issues that that your customers are talking about, and you would get also like some information about, okay, like I have repair questions like this many per day. So then I know, for example, if it's growing the same in, like you see the trajectory, and it's like, okay, I will have to do something better in the help center, for example, to kind of clarify that, or hire more people, or so that's another aspect that you could use to understand better, like what is the type of issues, and all of that happens automatically, so you don't have to like create your own buckets. Like it's just gonna classify it on its own.
And just to answer the question with what you can do today, I'll put on my customer support hat. Are you just on help desk, or do you have automate now AI agent? Okay, so you're on help desk. So what you can do is we have intents. So like, for example, the message comes in, and you can have a rule that says if the intent of the first message is shipping, for example, then assign that team. If the intent is not shipping, like you can do like all the common ones, and then you pass them to a given team. And then the things that are like more bespoke to your business, like very technical questions, for example, can be assigned to like another team. So that's how I would like split the workflow to be like the common stuff goes on the left, the technical stuff goes on the right, and that's how you can triage.
It's me again, but I guess my first question, it's a visibility issue for me. I think at the beginning of today you said like, it feels like a chat bot, and I'm afraid that my customers are going to think it's just a chat bot, and we spent all this time making it awesome. So I guess I'm wondering, like, is there a way to embed it in my product page? Is there a way to make it more visible? Like I have FAQs right under my add to cart button. Like, is there a way to use the power of knowing what they're doing on my website to make those FAQs more relevant to what we know about them? Or to engage them in the conversation that's not buried in a widget that they're just going to go, I don't want another AI chat bot.
Okay, so you're saying the customer is on the product page, they have like, and you want to prompt them like a couple questions that they can be asking. Am I getting this right, or are you referring to something else? Yeah. Okay, so in that case, a couple things. Like Max showed that earlier today. Like we have this like big floating input at the bottom of the screen, and then there's like a bunch of buttons that you can have at the top with like the commonly asked questions. And this is page aware. So like it takes the URL, it takes the browsing history, and so it's going to be like bespoke to any customer and personalized to their needs. So I think that's how you solve that. If you want to try it, there's a great QR code that has been shared, and so you can literally like flash it, book a call with us, and then we can turn that on. But yeah, for sure, like the experience. The goal is to like customize the experience and what we prompt for each of the customers. Right now, the way we do this is with the floating input and the conversation starters. Like maybe one thing we could do in the future is to embed that on the page itself. So like Amazon style, where they have like frequently asked questions about this product, for example. That's something that we've discussed. For now, we've decided to take more of the conversational route, but that's definitely an option.
Yeah, there's the search as well, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gustav, your question?
Yeah, thanks, Kimberly. Hi, my name is Sarah Rose, and a couple years ago I launched a CPG e-commerce brand. But before that, I started my career as a chemist, and then I've been in working with B2B software companies for over 10 years. And both of those things were easier than running a successful e-commerce brand. I have so much respect for the companies in this room who've made it and who have done well, and you've worked with thousands of them now. You've also had your own business for 10 years now. Congratulations, that's a huge success. And so I'm wondering if you could share with us some general wisdom that you've gleaned from working with these successful e-com brands, what makes them successful, culture or any specific, things you can tell us about their operations and how you made your business successful.
Oh, please. Give me a few seconds to to process. I mean, if I reflect on the Gorgias journey, I would say two things. And what's interesting is that at first, sometimes they are very simple ideas, and you're like, oh, like it's too simple, like it's not going to really help me. But then after like 10 years of doing the thing, you understand that okay, even though these ideas were simple, they are quite powerful. So I think like 10 years ago, when we met with Alex, we were at the beginning of Gorgias. We were, I don't know who knows the founding story here, but I'll share it. So Alex had started with a Chrome extension. That was about like writing messages faster, and then we did that as an add-on on top of Zendesk. That was like predicting responses. We had like 100 trial customers. Like didn't go so well, so like hey, like we're not going to do that, and decided to build the full platform, which is the help desk that you guys are using every day, and that we are using every day as well, and. Our initial idea was that like we want to serve like B2C customers because they help desk are built for everyone. So like competitors like Zendesk, for example, would be used by like B2B company, B2C companies, like government, like just like all industries. So we're like, hey, let's focus on something. And then like as we started to focus on B2C. So we had like food delivery companies at first, and then we decided to focus even more. And that's like kind of counterintuitive because like when you speak with investors, for example, they're like, hey, you need to have this like $10 billion TAM, or otherwise like I'm just passing and moving on. So like on our side, like we chose something that was very specific, which was like Shopify in 2015. Like Shopify in 2015 was not Shopify in 2025. Like very, very different. So it felt very niche, but I think it's hard to be the best at something when you pick something that's very broad. Whereas like if you pick something like very niche and very narrow, then like you don't have that much competition, and you can like be the best at like knowing these specific problems. And I think with Alex, like we've spent like the last decade of our professional life like trying to understand like all the things that you guys are talking about, and like figuring out like how we can do better here. So I would say like one thing is like pick one problem and be the best in the world at this one problem. And I've seen some merchants being very successful with that as well. Like when you look at like one of our early customers, I don't know if they are here, did like camel milk, for example. And I didn't know camel milk was a thing. But then I had some friends who were like buying camel milk. I was like, okay, like that's a legit business. And so like sometimes you need to like just pick one thing and be the best at it. So we say that's definitely one learning. And then you can expand from it. But I think starting broad is usually dangerous. And so I think that's like one of the learnings we got along the journey. And then I would say the second one is like, it's literally all about the people, and I don't like cliche sentences at all, but that's still very true. So I think we saw like all the stages of the journey. Like first, like the two of us meeting, like there was like about like finding the right fit in terms of co-founders. Then it was like building a 10-people team, and like a lot of that 10-people team like grew with the company to where it is today. And I think it's been a key strength of ours to have like some people who like started early and then built their career and then got to the next step. And so like then you have this healthy mix of like people that come from outside that brings their experience, and people who know like the whole journey that we've been through. And so I think when I look at bigger companies and companies I admire, like at some point, some of them lose this focus on like hiring really great people. Like Tiana from OpenAI, for example, I think is a great example. Like they probably like passed 1,000 people, I thought she was really great. Like the story was awesome. I think she joined OpenAI like 1 or 2 years ago. So that means like the bar on hiring is still like very high, even though there's like this like massively successful company. Like who can think of a company that's more successful than OpenAI these days? So I would say those two things: like pick one small problem, be the best at it, and then like always keep the bar very high on recruiting and never compromise. And it's hard because. Like for example, today, I need to take I took some interview calls this morning, and it was like 6 a.m. You need to prep for your presentation, and you could decide not to do that, but it has a cost. So I think those would be like the two insights that I think I've learned after these 10 years, and not just from our experience, but also from seeing other people succeed.
Yeah, what I would add to that is, I think it's like when we started, Zendesk was doing a couple $100 million of ARR or something like that. It's still kind of one of our main competitors to this day. And we were just kind of like two guys in the garage, you know. It's just like all I'm saying is that you can take on like big companies. I think I'm not sure who said it, but it's like basically it's like the founders compete against like kind of a product manager in whatever big company is, and that. If the product manager and the team is great in that big company, then you're going to be in trouble, most likely. But if they're not, then you have an opportunity, and that's how kind of startups get created. And yeah, I would stress, the second thing I would stress is definitely like, yeah, if it's a problem that like a lot of people have and you're solving it really well, it definitely works, but you have to be extremely persistent because, and I don't think it's even, like, I mean, you and the team, I guess, like you just, you know, you don't give up, and I think that's how things work eventually. You know, don't give up for 10 years. You know, things suddenly, like we can get all together. You know, it's pretty cool. Like I was walking in here, I was like, wow, like 10 years ago, it was just me and Roman, pretty much. Yeah, so it's cool to see. What can happen, but I think it's just, you know, when you're doing things day to day, you don't really, I mean, you're just trying to do the best every day, and you get the, I guess, like one story I want to say actually, like about Shopify is when I remember one day, like we were kind of a little bit generic solution, more for like kind of automating customer service. We did a couple of features which are kind of generic to find our product market fit, and one day Roman comes to me and says like, we have to build a Shopify integration. I'm like, okay, like I mean, I knew about Shopify, but I was like, I don't know, is it big? Is it like why? What's? And then he's telling me, he's like, we have to build with a billing system. And then I was like, why? We have Stripe. Like, I don't want to build another billing system. It's too complicated. And he's like, but look, it's like I have 8 out of 10 customers. Like they really want to work with us because you know there's a need there. And so. That's what kind of convinced me to, okay, let's go and invest there, and thankfully we did, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. And sometimes you just also, like, as you try and find your way, you need to experiment with different like options to figure it out, like what's, sometimes the market pulls you. You gotta listen, you know, to the customers, and then you kind of get dragged into that, and you just like do the best job you can.
Hi guys, my name's James. I work for a company called Stoco, and we make a knee brace alternative that's built into a pair of compression tights. A lot of the users that use our product have had knee replacements or have had hip surgery, and they're perhaps of more advanced age or in a demographic that's less receptive to AI. I'm wondering if there's anything that you're working on at the moment that sort of helps with that anti-AI bias for the older generation that at the moment aren't particularly receptive to it, because irrespective of the quality of the content that's given in a response, we see that there's a lot of negativity towards it because they're aware that it's generated by a computer.
I think it's just going to take time. I mean, people use ChatGPT more and more. It's becoming more mainstream, and they see the quality and the usefulness of it. And eventually, like, the culture is going to shift, or maybe not. Maybe, you know, OpenAI or someone else develops AGI, and we'll all lose our jobs, and it's like gonna, you know, be a very negative NPS there. But I think, yeah, I think it's just like it needs to be useful, because I think the bias against AI comes from the fact like that a lot of the chatbots of the past just didn't work. They're just horrible experience, and I think there's a legitimate concern, from people who are interacting with these chatbots. But the problem that I'm seeing here is that, well, if you have a team, like, is your team going to be able to respond within 5 seconds as the person who's like sending the message? So from a consumer point of view, it's like, well, okay, like I can talk with this AI thing, which is I don't like, but at least it responds quickly, And I guess like one technique, I think we should do that more, but like one technique is like when people say, it's like, I want to talk with an agent, it's like, sure, I'm gonna reach out to the agents, but like in the meantime, you can talk with me. And some people are like, okay, I'll talk with you, and then suddenly the experience is better. It's like, okay, this is actually not that bad. But I think it's just a matter of time. I think, and at the end of the day, it's about the quality. If the quality is not there, people are just going to be biased against it. If the quality is there and it's useful, then people are going to kind of, I think that's what it is. Like, we just need to make sure it's great, and then people will adopt it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the quality needs to increase for AI and for people to be happy with it. I'll just tell you a little story of what happened with our own support team. So like we have a wonderful support team at Gorgias. I'm sure like a lot of you have interacted with them. Like they have like I think like 4.8 CSAT. So they're doing an amazing job. And everything we do, we dog food. So that means that the help desk, AI agent, all that, like we use it ourselves. And we had this exact experience, which is people are like asking like questions that are, when they're getting started with Gorgias, they can be like, oh, how do I add a new user, for example, or like things that can be responded to with an AI with like a pretty high level of quality. So like we've been doing some of that, but I think the really exciting part is what like some of the merchants, Mia and others like shared this morning, is that it opens up a whole new realm of possibilities for folks on the team. And so like in our case, there's like Sandra, for example, like who was one of our best like tier 1 agent that became like a tier 2 agent and then a manager. And like all of you guys, like if you need help with your implementation of Gorgias, like we were talking about like internal notes or stuff like that, you can jump on calls with our implementation team. And what has happened in our business is that the implementation team is essentially like folks who are doing like tier 1 support on like more basic questions that are now spending their time to do like calls and in-depth review of the accounts and like things that are higher value. So like the way I would look at it is like, if your customers are okay with it, like have AI do the thing that's like not really high value, but when someone's like, hey, I had hip surgery, I need like product help, and I don't want to be talking to an AI, like that's like literally like the most important thing for me is like to be able to like work properly. That's where you want to be speaking with a human. So I would view this as like AI is going to free up some of your time, because I suspect you'll still will need to like respond to like some Wismo tickets or like things that like will just not go away. And then what you can do is like have like the ability to book calls with or like jump on the phone with like people on the team that can like provide this human touch. That's highly valuable. That's where I see the future going. So I think it's actually really cool to like be able to reuse all this time for like really high value interactions.
Hi, I'm Brendan. I work for a portfolio company. We sell hearing aids, cleaning products, everything. So we use AI Agent, and I wanted to ask about how you guys are improving hallucinations specifically, and what kind of guardrails you had in place. I remember talking to one of your engineers, and I believe he talked about a 6-step process, and I've always wondered what that was. And also these sort of subcategories of issues that exist under hallucinations, like looping, saying the same thing over and over again, parroting, the customer says something that's incorrect, and the AI assumes it's correct and extrapolates from there. What is your process for reducing hallucinations, and how do you plan to improve it?
Yeah, it's always a moving target, let's just be honest. I think nobody really can say that their AI, which is like generative, by definition, it's like it's gonna generate things which don't exist based on like, I mean, Tiana had a whole presentation explaining how the LLM works this morning, so I don't think that's possible. The only thing you can do is reduce, right? So the question is like, what are the guardrails that we do that? So we have indeed like multiple steps. Every single message goes through a couple of different steps, and we use different models. And the way we approach the problem is that like every single step has what we call like an evaluation kind of data set, which we use to do tests. So every time we test a new model or we change the the underlying prompt template, and so forth. Like we kind of run a battery of tests to make sure that we don't have regressions there. With newer models, it seems like also like kind of the big vendors also are moving towards like instruction following criteria. So basically how good the model is to at following what it's prompted to do. Like for example, 4.0 is like it's very good at following, but like 4.1 is even better, and they actually kind of like trained it to do better at that. So it feels like also the industry is kind of moving in instruction following, and especially like reducing the hallucinations there. I think the other aspect is like how you split. For example, like if you have a pretty big help center with like thousands of articles, and you try to put all of that in your AI, it's not going to work. So having the ability to segment that information a little bit better is like it's pretty important as well. So that's another part like which we are always improving. And I think my take also is that, like I mentioned that at the beginning, is when the hallucination or the problem inevitably happens, you should be able to know why. Like it should be very easy for you to figure out like why did that happen, where is the source of hallucination coming from, or something like that. With the parroting, that part is the last step that we have in there's kind of like a LLM judge before the response kind of goes out, and there's, let's say, like there's some, like, I can't really say like what we put inside there, but yeah, it prevents like some of that behavior, but it's not perfect by any means. So I think it's always gonna be like, what we really appreciate is like, if you find those type of examples, we read the feedback that the customers are saying. So there's like a feedback button in the product. So when we see that type of behavior, send it to us, and we have a team that looks into that, like prompt engineers that look in those examples, and then they adjust a little bit the prompt, generate a better data set so that we improve it next time. So that's how our process works to do these improvements. But I would say like we are quite conservative with what we respond to customers, and a lot of times we just escalate to the human agents because of that. Yeah.
So we have one more question over here, guys, and then we can take one more because our time is up. So we have one more.
Hi, I'm Owen from SimpleSat. First off, thanks, guys. Great event. Lots of fabulous information. My question is really focused around all the excitement of AI, and I think everyone is just amazed. They were blown away by the presentation this morning. But it's also quite scary because lots of things are changing. Lots of things are changing very quickly. So one of the things that I would be concerned about is, what do you think the impact or the risk factor is on security and all the amount of change that's happening at the pace? I'm interested in getting your thoughts on whether that's a big challenge for you or how you're addressing that.
So I'll take this. So on the security, there's like security is like a lot of different layers that you can have. So we, even without the AI, like we have a lot of, let's say we clean a lot of data before it even gets into our system. So like credit card numbers, SSNs, like a bunch of like, so the number one thing to do is like, do you even need all of the data to have it on your system? Because like if you don't have it, you can't leak it, right? So that's like kind of number one thing that you do, data scrubbing. So that's one. Then it's like, okay, like the infrastructure, how is it held and so forth. And then there is the vendors. LLM vendors is one of the vendors, right? Like, but we have like analytics, we have like, we send some of the analytics data to BigQuery, like that's another one. It's like, so then you have to understand like, okay, where are you sending all of this data as well? Like, and how can that be compromised and so forth. Then there is the internal aspect. Okay, employees, me, Roman, everyone else in Gorgias, like what access to the data they have internally and like how is that accessed? But specifically to AI, so first of all, like the contracts that we have with all of the LLM vendors, they are prohibited from using that data for doing training, for example, or doing any sort of kind of using that data in any shape or form. So that's number one. But the second thing is like we also the one option is also to remove some of the personal information before sending it to the vendor. But the problem is if you do that and then it's pretty hard to do any sort of automation. So there is always this sort of dance between the usefulness of the data that you're using with the third parties versus the privacy and the security of it. So I would say it's a tricky problem. I don't think it's very clear what the end game is going to be, because like we're always kind of we need to explore this space, but there's always these risks like the safety, the data, the privacy, the security, and so forth of this data is quite. I mean, I can tell you more about like our security program and like how many audits we're doing and all of that type of stuff. But it's really, really important for us because I mean, at the end of the day, we are, let's say, landlords of. I don't know, not landlords, but how should I? It's your data basically. It's like we're just like if you don't trust us with your data, we're out of business, pretty much. That's the thing, and so like we really take it seriously, because also it's like we're not like a closed, let's say, community or something like that. It's in software as a service, like you can move providers. If you don't trust the data with us, then it's a big issue, and so that's been always like kind of top of mind for us. And yeah, then there's the compliance thing and all of those type of things. But I think that's my answer.
I'll just answer the first part of the question, which is like the fear around AI. So in the few moments when I'm not working on Gorgias or with my family, I like to read books about history. And I think there's a couple of things that are really interesting. One is like the moment you define the start of humanity is like when we started using tools. And so I think like tools are like just the essence of like us as humans is like we're able to do more. And so I think AI is like one of these tools. So I think that's one thing to be excited about. Then like one of the weird things I've done in my life is like to read newspapers from like 150 years ago. And it's like super interesting because you get the perspective on like things that are super obvious to us, like the Industrial Revolution, for instance. But then you get like how people felt about it. They were like, oh, like it's dangerous. That's going to change like the way our world is today. And it was, of course. But what's interesting also to see is that as we all in this journey together of e-commerce, like we're building wealth, and like the more we trade, the more like we bring products to market, like the better off we are as a group, the more it raises living conditions. So I think like there's like when you look back, you're like, okay, we have some things to lose. We all have some things to lose in the AI world if we don't adapt, and I think that part's scary. Like I think with Gorgias, if we didn't lean into AI, like we'd have like a great business with like a great community with like all of you guys that would be in danger. So I think there's always like this part of fear that comes with it. But I think the exercise is like, hey, like just embracing the fact that the future is going to be like twice as better or like 3 times better. And so I think that's the way to look at it, even though it's not like super intuitive. So that's why I'm like super excited about all these things that are coming, even though they're a little scary. Like all our businesses are going to be different next year. Like when we were on this stage last year, we're like, okay, like we're figuring things out. Like we've learned a lot this year. I think next year is going to be like also really exciting. But there's like a ton of competition also that comes with AI. So I think it's just about like leaning into the future and being like, hey, like there's more opportunities that we just can't see because like they are not in front of us just yet. Cool. Just to wrap up, I just want to say a big thank you to Victor here on the left, and I don't know if there are some other members of the engineering team, but like the demos you've seen this morning were like to me like pretty incredible. Like there was a question on quality. Like the quality is much better with like the thing that we showed this morning that we're going to roll out to everyone, and that's thanks to like the hard work of like Alex's team and Victor's team on the engineering side. So they are the heroes behind the presentations. Like we're telling cool stories with all this, but the tech works, and that's thanks to like a lot of hours of work. So I just want to like give the engineering team a round of applause to wrap this up.